Welcome to the Grand Temple of Enki. My name is Max. I am the Temple Ipsissimus. I am an oracle and channeler of Enki, the Anunnaki, and the Egyptian gods and goddesses. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about hexes, curses, bindings, and what many deem as black magic. Spiritual warfare, adversarial forces, enemies, people, places, situations, groups, organizations, civilizations that pose a threat to your life or the lives of your loved ones, your people, right? These are some of the most primal, core emanations of opposition, purgatory, duality in the universe, and even the multiverse. And truth be told, hexes, curses, bindings, all these things are there for you. They're there for you to grow, and they are there for you to overcome. Just as Horus overcomes Set, your light is also supposed to overcome darkness. You are here to overcome your own darkness. You are here in essence to become the Alpha and the Omega. You're here to become the above and the below. And that's what technically hexing is. Hexing comes from the word hexagram or hexagon. A hex is basically your toroidal field, your positive polarity and your negative polarity coming back into balance. Okay? So if you are being hexed, or if you're hexing someone, whether it's due to disrespect, rude behavior, stepping out of line in any way, shape, or fashion, things that are more petty and less severe, then hexing is usually something that's used to balance out the other person's energy. It's there to balance out their shadow and their light, right? A perfect example of this is if someone has experienced a lot of trauma or stress in their life and they've coped by being hyperactive, hyperproductive, right? A workaholic even. What typically happens is these type of people will become overly fixated on having control, and they will express toxic behaviors in their relationships such as anger, neglect, disregard for other people's feelings, insensitivity, right? Because they're not grounded. They're too much in their head. They're too wrapped up in their own world. They're thinking out loud, right? So naturally, what happens with people like this when they're hexed is they'll typically get into some sort of accident, usually some sort of physical accident, and this will cause them to, slow down. The universe will force them to slow down instead of trying to assert dominance into places where they shouldn't out of a place of trauma. Another way it can also express itself is a mental breakdown or burnout. That's also another way, right? If you're always in your head, you're too electrical, then you're going to be burning out. You're going to literally fry your nervous system. And same vice versa for someone that's too earthbound, right? If you're too earthbound, you don't want to grow, you don't want to do anything, you don't really value life as much, right? You're living life as though you're going to live forever. And you're not really valuing every single day. You're just kind of, lethargic. It's like, what's out there anyway? And this can cause a disregard for other people's emotions in a different way. It can cause different types of neglect, different types of disrespect, taking people for granted. And people like this will usually, experience loss of family members, experience loss of loved ones to reawaken their, acknowledgement of mortality. They'll be asked to live in a higher vibration, more in sync with their vibrancy, their heavenly energy, so that they can live life valuing it, so they can value their life and those around them and live more in harmony. So in the end, hexing is all a matter of bringing your toroidal field back into balance with the opposite poles. And when it comes to things like cursing is a little different. Cursing is for more severe actions and more severe consequences. And cursing is not for innocent people, okay? So you don't go about just cursing innocent people. Cursing is usually for people that, you know, are criminals, sex traffickers, sex offenders, seriously dangerous, wicked, twisted people. That's what cursing is for. If someone's doing something that's unforgivable and that's, impossible to forgive, then that's where cursing comes into play. And it's not a bad thing. The other person has to feel, whether it's a sociopath, a psychopath, a serial killer, a, abuser, they have to experience the pain that they've caused to their victims. They have to experience it. So when you are cursing someone, you squeeze all the pain that they've caused you or someone that you love. You squeeze all that pain out and pour into them so that they can receive it back to them as a reflection. And the crazy part is, people think cursing someone is a bad thing, when in reality, it's not the case, right? If you're a rabbit out in nature, you can't demand justice if a tiger eats you. The tiger is just eating what it's eating. You can't demand justice if you have no power, right? It's the same thing with spiritual power. If you're going to leave your justice to a different being, to an angel or to anything, you're not really exercising your own power. You're not really entitled to it, right? Like, in the end, that's how nature works. You have to be able to grow through your challenges. In the end, angels will help you with those things, but they want you to be able to defend yourself. That's the number one thing angels are there to show you. Even if you are a white magician, even if you are a Christian, and you believe in Jesus or angels or whatever it may be, in the end, you have to exercise your own spiritual authority, your own spiritual power, and your wit to bring about the results that you desire in adversarial, oppositional dynamics. So it's wise to know the difference. Cursing and hexing, they're very different. They're not the same. And same with binding. And cursing doesn't always appear to be what it sounds. You can curse someone with healing too. You can curse someone with love, toxic love, right? You can curse people even with quote unquote white magic. You can curse people with both of the hands, right? You can heal someone that's been on their deathbed for 2 years and keep them just alive enough to suffer more. Or you can curse someone that's been their deathbed for 2 years that's lost everyone that they've loved, and you're just stringing them along to experience more suffering, and no one's there for them. So in the end, it's not just quote unquote attacking someone. Like, sometimes even good deeds can be disguised. And when it comes to bindings, this can be a little bit of a silly topic for some, because most of the time, people use binding for petty purposes. If you're trying to get a promotion and you have a colleague that's competing with you for that promotion, right? You'll bind them. Like, yeah, it might work, but in the end, you can't just bind people because they're casting your shadows. In the end, you kind of have to see what they're bringing up in you, right? Because if you're trying to bind someone that's shining brighter than you, then you're just actually binding yourself and your higher potential. You're refusing to shine brighter. You're refusing to adapt and conquer. You have to think and work smarter, not harder, right? You can't just use brute force. And that's another thing. Like, when it comes to this type of magic, you can't have a lower level of consciousness, right? You have a lot of quote unquote witches and practitioners that are getting into this type of magic, cursing, hexing, and all these things. And it's coming from a very petty place. And they think that no one can touch them, right? Because cops can't arrest you for it. Well, guess what? That's not true. There are spiritual forces that do regulate magicians and witches that abuse their powers. That's a real thing. And that also goes with vampires, right? If you have a vampiric magician, for example, that's harvesting energy from innocent people, that's harvesting energy in a way that's corrupt, power hungry, greedy, no regard for life, then there are other vampiric beings that will come into the picture and vampirize that vampire or that person that's taking everyone's energy. There are beings and groups that will do that. And they may be seen as quote unquote evil, but they're actually more like magic cops. So it's the same thing with hexing and cursing as well. If you're just going around hexing and cursing people and you're doing, spell work on them that's way out of proportion, overkill to the highest degree, right? Like if you're cursing a child because a child yelled at you, then you are going to receive judgment because it's a child. You know, in the end, there are certain things that you have to have temperance for. You have to have balance between mercy and severity. That's what makes a person worthy. So there are beings, very elder forces, even death deities that deal in this type of regulation. So if you're cursing innocent random people just for fun or for petty reasons, then there are beings that will give you a spiritual butt whooping, and they will, beat you into shape. Like you will receive judgment. And it can even span from lifetimes. You can experience lifetimes of those repercussions to those types of acts. So it does come at a price, and it's wise to have a balanced consciousness. It's wise to have a solid solar energy that's balanced with mercy and severity, right? You got to have balance first inside before you act in any way, shape, or form. You got to have clarity. That's why a lot of people will typically use divination before doing any type of baneful magic. Okay? So you want to have that clarity, you want to have that balance, and in doing so, you'll be able to grow in the way you're supposed to. And you'll also help keep others accountable for their actions in the way that doesn't harm you and further decreases harm on their side as well. And the same thing could also be said for charms, right? Beauty charms. Like if you're charming yourself with beauty and you're trying to charm someone that's already in a relationship, that can also be, not a good idea, imbalanced. But in the end, the karma is definitely also on the person that would be cheating in that sense. So there are things that have to be kind of worked out within the mind. You have to understand how the clock gears are turning to really make the proper moves in magical operations, especially baneful magic. And the reason we experience these things ultimately is because we're here to learn about ourselves. We are the universe coming back into union. So there are cycles in the multiverse, in the Wheel of Time, right? The Wheel of Time is made up of the 12 zodiac. The 12 zodiac, 12 constellations. In those 12 constellations, we have various different races, DNA templates, and each constellation also has its own opposite, has its own polarity. And war, spiritual warfare, physical warfare can oftentimes be predestined. Sometimes those two DNA templates have to clash together to bring about new awareness, a new consciousness. So it's all there for your benefit. And magicians, gurus, oracles, priests such as myself that practice Kala Chakra, that connect to the Godhead, we bring the energy of the Wheel of Time already completed, so that those that are willing to bypass the suffering and quote unquote bypass the karma and go through the transformation internally instead of causing suffering to themselves, to their loved ones, and to the world, we bring the energy of the completed state directly, breaking away karma and purgatory. So if you're already into hexes, curses, bindings, and magic, anything in the mystical field, and you require counseling from a professional magician, a professional occultist that's connected to the Godhead and the gods themselves, book a one-on-one with me, and I will help you get the ideal results for your situation so that you can grow in the way you're supposed to and evolve in the way that you are destined to evolve without being sidetracked into these lower karmic timelines. So that's all I have to say regarding this topic. Leave your feedback and your comments below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time.